Hello, I'm Todd Youngblood with the YPS Group, and this short video is to give you a few ideas, thoughts, hints, and tips on how to execute the Revere Controls What Do Our Customers Value project. The idea is to have a series of video interviews with decision makers and key decision influencers at a variety of Revere accounts. The objectives of the whole project, very straightforward. We just want to thoroughly understand exactly what it is that Revere customers find valuable. On the side benefit of doing that, by asking that kind of a question and doing it in such a formal way, it'll also go a long way, I believe, into developing and broadening and deepening the relationships that each of you have with the decision makers and decision influencers in your territory. The third thing, kind of a side benefit actually, is that the use of video technology is turning into an extremely powerful sales and marketing tool, and this will hopefully be a chance to get started on that and get comfortable in front of the camera making a movie. It's really not that big a deal at all. The first step in executing the whole process, obviously, would be to identify the individuals that you want to interview in your territory. Ideally, it would be from a strategically important account. Let's say it's one of the top 10 in your territory, and a decision maker, someone with budget authority that can sign off on a major project and sign a check. So a decision maker from a strategically important account would be first choice. Also important, we'd like to see if everybody could do at least 3 of these that could be viewed, presented, and discussed at the May 13th strategic planning meeting. But in addition to a decision maker, maybe a kind of middle of the pack account and a key decision influencer would also be a key perspective. The second thing that would be important in talking to and setting this up and setting expectations for the customers that are doing that, some folks might well be nervous having the thing recorded. So in my view, the most important thing in setting those expectations is to make it crystal clear what the objective of this whole project is, and that is to thoroughly, clearly understand what it is that you, our important customer, find of value. And then it's the job of the Revere team, the sales rep, the engineers, everybody, the support staff, to then deliver that kind of value to the customer. I mean, there's no hidden agenda. It's that straightforward. It's that simple. The formality of the process is really required. If Revere is really serious about delivering value, or first of all understanding exactly what is valued and then delivering that value, it needs to be a pretty darn formal process, which is why the recordings are taking place, so that they can be reviewed, looked at by numerous people. The second really important thing about setting expectations is that all of this stuff is absolutely held in strict confidence. It will be for Revere internal use only. If after the fact we find a couple of things that we feel are valuable for release to the public, that absolutely will not be done without the express permission of the customer involved. So those two things are really thoughts to keep in mind in terms of setting expectations. With regard to questions, I'll suggest 2 sets of questions really. The first set being to ask about the last thing that this customer bought from Revere. Talk a little bit about what was it that they purchased, what problem what problem was being solved, or what opportunity was being addressed by that purchase, what value the customer thought they would get out of that purchase, and then finally the value they actually received from it. I'd follow that up, very similar question, actually 2 more times. The second question would be with regard to a competitor of Revere. What is it that you bought? What problem were you trying to solve or opportunity to address? What value did you expect to receive? What value did you actually receive? And then that same set of questions 1 more time with regard to something they purchased that really had nothing to do with control systems integration at all. Again, what was it? What problem? What opportunity? Expected value and actual value received. The second set of questions revolves around the decision process itself. And this, asking about the decision process, in my view, really gets down to clearly defining what's valued. Three questions there. The first one being, what is the decision process? And typically that'll involve multiple people that'll have different perspectives on what's important. So who was involved? Maybe you take an example of the last thing they bought from Revere. Who was involved in that decision? What did they do? There might have been somebody that wanted to see a demonstration. There might have been somebody that wanted to talk to a reference account where that type of work had been done before, etc. But a series of people that were involved in that decision process, what sequence, what were they looking for, how was that information shared? Then the second set of questions with regard to the decision process is decision criteria. That would be things like a return on investment of 30%, a break-even point of, let's say, less than 1 year, or a project needed to be completed by October 15th. So very specific, concrete things are decision criteria. In addition to being concrete, some quantified value, some number, so that I can measure not only the value that's expected by the customer, but again, the value that they actually receive from it. And then the final question you might want to ask about decision process is, for each of the criteria that you've identified, why is that a decision criteria? That oftentimes turns into very interesting conversations in terms of what corporate objective or what organizational objective in a public sector environment is being achieved by this project, and that's why decision criteria X is in place. A couple of tips on the video portion of it. None of us are Cecil B. DeMille, so we don't need to worry too much about the videography portion of it. But there are a couple of things that are important. We'll be using these flip cameras. It'll take, I'll tell you what, if it takes more than a minute for you to learn how to use this thing, I'd be surprised. Incredibly simple. There's an on-off button on one side. On the back of it, the red start filming, stop filming button. There's a plus and a minus for zoom in and zoom out. That's about it. And you can plug it into the USB port on your PC to transfer the file back in. So the operation of the camera is very simple. You'll also want some kind of a tripod. This is just a little desktop tripod that I have, so that you can set the camera up. You'll want to get it framed so that you and the customer are both in the picture, so you may have to run back and forth a few times to set it up. One very important tip that I'd provide is don't do what I'm doing now, and that is looking directly into the camera. You really want to set the camera up so that you're talking on an angle, and so that you, let's just say your customer, for example, is here and I'm you, so that hopefully you're both in the frame and you're talking to one another, not talking to the camera. So the idea is get the camera set up, get the framing done, turn the thing on, and then forget that it's there. Just have a conversation between the two people. Instead of side by side at a table, I've found quite often being on a corner of a conference table with you here and the customer here, and again the camera off at an angle so that you're not looking at it. Works pretty well. That's really about all you need to know about that. After the fact homework, once that video is done and you've asked your questions, as you would typically do, I'd suggest writing down what you learned, typical notes that you take after any kind of a sales call. Then take a look at the video. When we get to the meeting on the 13th, then everybody will share the videos that they had, or some selected subset of them, talk about what everybody learned. And then again, back to that ultimate objective. What is it exactly, or what are the key things that Revere customers value? Once we get that all together and presented, it'll get consolidated, and there'll be a team in place led by Bob himself to make sure that all of the processes, be they sales, marketing, engineering, service delivery, administration, whatever it is, all get aimed toward those things that we discover are truly the things that Revere customers value. In addition to this video, there's a little 3-page write-up as well that you'll all have, cover a lot of the same material I did just now. Hopefully it's all helpful, and I'm sure it's going to be an extremely valuable project. And making the videos is fun. I think you'll enjoy it as well. So there's no downside in this thing. If you have any questions, again, I'm Todd Youngblood, TODD at ypsgroup.com, or 770-514-1189. 770-514-1189. Feel free to shoot me an email or pick up the phone and call. I'll be glad to talk through any questions that you have. So good luck with the project.